Hi heathens! Today's video is going to be another get ready with me while I talk about a movie. Now this one is a classic. I had never seen it all the way through until today. And if you've seen it, you'll understand, but it is going to be very difficult and odd to talk about. There's a little hair on the camera. Oh well. It's a black and white movie. There's a big emphasis on visuals and sound. So I'm gonna tell y'all what happened. And then, or at least to the best of my abilities. I did take notes for this one. So if I need to reference them, I will. Because when I did not do that last time, I realized that I should have. So, anyway, I digress. It is Eraserhead. So I am sure many of you have seen it or heard of it, or at least know the premise behind it. So it's about this couple that wind up having a deformed baby. So it starts off, you meet the main character, Henry, and his creepy neighbor, that's what I'm going to refer to her as because she's a creepy neighbor, tells him that he had gotten a phone call from someone named Mary who invited him over to dinner with her parents. Okay. Apparently she had gotten the call on the payphone there, the creepy neighbor answered the call on the payphone. And I just completely lost the palette that I was going to be using. Here we go. And so she's just, passing the message. And, it's his girlfriend, Mary. So Henry's like, okay, thanks. And, you see him go inside and he's drying off his sock on the radiator because, in the beginning of the movie, he's walking through a parking lot and steps into some wet mud sludge. And so anyway, he does that. He's headed over to Mary's, and there's also a lot of dirt and vines in his apartment. It's weird. So anyway, he gets to Mary's house. And he's standing outside, kind of looking at this ripped picture of her. And you see her look out the window. And she tells him that he's late. And he's like, hey, what's going on? You haven't been around. Is everything okay? And she's like, just come in. My parents are waiting. He's like, okay. So it's them inside in the living room with her mom. And she's asking Henry, what do you do? He's like, well, I'm on vacation right now, but I work for the paper factory. I'm a printer. Alright, cool. Well, then the dad comes in, I guess the back door, or it's through the kitchen or something, but you hear the door open and shut, and then it flips to the dad. And he's talking about how he's a plumber, and, he's been doing it for so long, and people think the pipes just grow in their house, and they forget that someone actually deals with it, blah, 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 blah. Well, the mom's finally like, okay, that's enough, and it flips to them all making food, them as in the parents. And so the dad is making chicken, and the mom is making what I can only assume is a salad because she's got this giant bowl in the sink. And then there's this aunt, grandma, something character that's never actually acknowledged, sitting in the corner. The mom, puts the bowl in her lap and then takes her hands, puts them on the utensils, and, tosses the salad using the other woman's arms. And then puts the bowl back in the sink, and then lights a cigarette for that woman, who isn't touching the cigarette, just sitting there smoking it. So Anyway, they bring out the food, everyone's sitting at the table, and the dad starts telling Henry about how he injured his arm at one point, and like now he has no feeling in it. The doctors told him he can never use it, but he managed to, blah, blah, blah. Fast forward, he's like, so normally my wife does the cutting of the food, but I was hoping maybe you could do it tonight. And Henry's like, sure, I guess, why not? And, so the dad takes one of these, like, I guess hens, because it's a small chicken, off the big serving platter and puts it on Henry's plate. And Henry picks up the knife and the, like, I don't know what they're called, but it's like that big grilling fork that has the two really large prongs. He picks up that and the knife, and he's like, do I just cut it like a normal chicken? And the dad's like, yeah, cut it like a normal chicken. And Henry, like, goes to start to cut it, and it starts moving, like, full-on wiggling about its little back legs, and starts squirting out this, like, black sludge. And the mom has, like, this really weird moment where she's, like, moaning, and then, like, starts freaking out, and, like, runs to the kitchen, and the daughter follows her, and the dad's just looking at Henry smiling, super creepy, and Henry's just watching this chicken just gush goo onto his plate. Well, then the mom finally comes back out and asks Henry if she can talk to him in the other room, and then Mary's in the doorway crying. So it's like, okay, I wonder what's going on now, because the mom left crying. So Henry's like, yeah, okay. And follows her into the other space, and she asks him if he and Mary have had sex. And so, obviously, he gets super uncomfortable, and he's like, why are you asking me that? She's like, I have my reasons, you know, just answer the question. And he's like, I really don't feel comfortable answering that. Well, then it gets really creepy, and she, like, pushes him against the wall and, like, starts licking him. I don't know. The whole movie is incredibly uncomfortable. Like, literally every other scene, you're like, don't feel like I should be watching this for some reason. But, anyway, Mary finally comes up and, like, pulls her mom off of Henry. And the mom tells him, like, well, there's a baby at the hospital. And he's like, that's impossible. And the mom's like, no, it's premature, but it's a baby. Mary interjects and says they don't know that it's a baby, which is kind of like the first red flag, because it's like, what does that even mean? And the mom's like, no, it's a baby. It's premature, but it's a baby. And, you know, now you have to marry my daughter because y'all have a child. And, you know, fast forward to Mary talking to Henry, and she's like, you don't mind getting married, do you? And he's like, no, I guess that's fine. So then, I guess we fast forward, you get to see Mary in Henry's apartment with this baby. It kind of looks like E.T. to me. I know that sounds weird, but if you've seen the movie, you'll probably know what I mean. And it's all wrapped in bandages, and she's trying to feed it, and it doesn't want to eat, and she's, like, having to force food into it. Well, fast forward, they're trying to sleep, and the baby's crying. Well, Mary can't handle it. She's had enough. So she gets up, tells Henry that she's leaving, he can deal with it for the night. And, he's like, okay, well, are you coming back tomorrow? And she's like, I'll do what I want. And then leaves. And so he's just like looking at the baby and he's like, what am I supposed to do here? So he does take its temperature and thinks it's sick. Well, when he turns around, I'm going to reference my note real quick. Oh yeah, before this, Henry had opened a cabinet and put some like little weird worm thing in the cabinet. Okay, yeah. So he takes its temperature and he like turns to the light so he can read the thermometer. And when he turns back around, because the baby starts crying again, it is covered in these like weird little bumps. And Henry's like, oh my god, you are sick. Like, what do I do? Well, anyway, he can't leave because the baby keeps crying. So eventually, he just winds up going to sleep. Is this the first flash? Yes. So then the whole scene switches to a stage. And there's this girl with really large cheeks on the stage. And she's just like scooting over and like just smiling. And then these worm spine pre-fetus looking things start like falling onto the stage beside her and all around her. And then she winds up squishing them. And then flip back to Henry in the apartment and the weird crying baby. Mary is back in this scene, at least. Still not 100% sure if this scene happened, because she's back, but she's like fully enveloped in the blanket and is like squirming and like doing that with her teeth. I don't know what word it is I'm looking for, like chittering her teeth. And, you know, Henry's like, move over, you're on my side of the bed, move over. And starts to pull the weird little worm things that were falling on the stage, like, out of the blanket. And he's like throwing them against the wall and like freaking out. And he's like, what is happening? So, referencing. This is why I did this. Okay. Mary's gone, and the creepy neighbor shows up at Henry's and is like knocking on the door. And he opens it, and she's like, hey, I locked myself out of my apartment. Can I stay here tonight? And he's like, And the whole time, she's like coming in, and he's over there like trying to get the baby to not cry. Like, he's literally holding his hand over its mouth. I guess so she doesn't know it's there. And, then it fast forwards to them in the bed, but the bed has turned into like a tub. So they're like in the bed, but down in some liquid, doing things, which is very inappropriate. Considering, you know, he has a wife, and she's already asked where Mary is, and he said, I don't know, I guess she's back at her parents', which is where she went when she left that first time, and where she obviously was when he went to go meet her parents. So she winds up, while they're in this liquid, noticing the baby because it starts crying again. And there's just this like super weird moment where she's staring it down, but her and Henry are still kissing, and it's just, again, lots of uncomfortable moments in this movie that just make you wonder why you're watching or what you're watching. And then, forgive me. Yes, so Big Cheek Woman appears again, but now Henry is on this stage with her, and she's singing this song like everything's fine in heaven, and when you're in heaven everything's fine. I know that sounds redundant, but that's, ooh, that knocked you over. That's kind of just what the song is. Are you level again? And he winds up going over like to the side of the stage and is like turning this bar, and his head falls off, and out of where his head was pops the little baby's head, and it starts crying. And then in the back on the stage rolls like a really large version of this tree that Henry has beside his bed in some dirt. Like I said, there's a bunch of dirt. And it's just like a full-grown version of this tree. And it's just there. And it starts like black goo. The same goo, more or less, that came out of the chicken. Just starts spilling it onto the stage, and it just surrounds Henry's head. And then there's a scene change, and the head like rolls and falls and winds up falling into the parking lot where Henry was at the very beginning of the movie. Well, a little boy comes and picks the head up and takes it to this like building. It doesn't ever really tell you what it is. And so the guy at the counter's pushing the button for, I guess, the owner to come to the front, points out the boy with the head, and he takes him into another room where there's this man sitting at this desk with all these mechanics, and he takes the head and he drills into it. I'll put that up later. All I'm doing is knocking you around. And like takes the bit that he drilled and puts it up on this machine and starts making pencils and adding erasers to it. I guess hence Eraserhead. And then once the production line kind of gets to him, he grabs one, draws a line on a piece of paper, erases it, says, "Yeah, it's fine." And the man pays the little boy, and he leaves. Then we snap back to Henry's place, where he's very much alive and with a head. And he's standing there looking at the baby, and winds up seeing, or like I guess hearing, a something outside. So he opens the door and sees the creepy neighbor with another man, and somehow gets really upset about this, and goes back inside his apartment and like kind of slides to the ground in one of those really dramatic, sad fashions. And then it shows him, you know, walk up to the baby, and he's got these like scissor, like, you know, the teeny like sewing scissors? It's kind of like those. So he has those, and like I said, the baby's like wrapped in these bandage cloth things. And so Henry starts cutting them to, like, I guess, see the baby's body, you know? Because he hasn't. All he can see is the head and neck sticking up out of this cloth bandage wrap. And that's all you've seen the entire time, too. Because when it showed up with Mary, that's just how it already was, and they've left it on this, like, little table in the corner of the room. And so it's just crying and crying. Well, he gets the bandages open, and you find out the baby doesn't really have a body. Like, there's just organs or something under the bandage. So Henry freaks out even more. Sorry, I didn't want to poke myself in the eye. And he takes the scissors that he's got and, like, jabs one of the organs. And you hear the baby, like, scream, and this blood starts spilling out, this black goo blood, like, has been in the film the whole time. And then this, like, weird wet sand stuff comes out and starts just going all over the baby and all over the room. And then dramatic pause. There's a scene where, like, a full-grown version of the baby, it's like a man covered in those same bumps, like, pulls a lever that's, like, sparking, and then the big cheek girl is there with Henry, and there's, like, no background, and she hugs Henry, and that's it. That's how the movie ends. It is something. I'll tell you that. It's definitely, it's really hard to describe because it is such a visual and auditory movie, but I did my best. Just kind of ends. Like, there's no, got makeup on my teeth. There's no real, like, full conclusion. You never even know, like, if Mary finds out, what happens after the fact, what it was, none of that. It just ends. So, I will show you the makeup look I created while telling that story. And I would love to hear y'all's thoughts down below. If you've seen the movie, let me know what you thought of it. I definitely think it's worth watching, but it's a strange one. Yeah, let me know what you think of the look. And otherwise, I will see you guys next time. Oh, thumbs up if you enjoyed. Subscribe to see more of my content. Can't believe I almost forgot that. Now, I will see you guys next time. Bye.